The quality of the audio in this video sucks. Sorry about that. Sucks to be you, loser. Ha 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 ha. Ha.
What up YouTube? DungeonMattster back with another video. So this week we were supposed to do something with a carnival, but instead I chose to paint this bad guy instead. And stick around and we'll get to that, and I hope you all enjoy it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the DungeonMattster, back with another video. We've got a big one this week. We are painting a classic, a red dragon. And this thing is just like, I'm just gonna open it. This isn't, obviously this video is not sponsored in any way. This is just something that I wanted to do. Taking some of that Patreon money and putting it back into the channel. So in some way, I guess, this means my patrons are responsible for this video and the purchase of this dragon. Nice big old base in there. Nice. Oh, look at him. He's just amazing. Oh, I can't wait to paint him. He's gonna look so nice. Solid sculpt on this thing, from the looks of it. It's got that Vallejo gray primer on it, the same thing as the Dungeons and Dragons miniatures. Man, he is sharp, and I mean, not just good looking. This thing is pointy. Oh man. What do you think, folks? I think I'm gonna spread these wings out. I think this guy needs to be just big. I think I'm gonna heat these bad boys up, and I'm gonna spread them so that he can look even more badass on the table. Also, I don't want to freaking have to reach a paintbrush up in here and try to do detail. So, call me lazy, but I'm going to change this guy's pose. Okay, the first thing that I had to do after getting the dragon's wings sorted out was to work on the base, and I had this piece of cork board left over from a domestic project where I was putting up some stuff to hang pictures on and whatnot upstairs in the house. And I had some of it left over. I thought, hey, that would make good rocks for this. And I think I've seen other people use these for similar techniques, even though they were using them more like for grassland and stuff like that. So I thought that this would look great. I decided to stack them up on top of each other too, to give it kind of like a pillared look for the dragon to stand on. However, I didn't really like how this looked, and in the end I eventually scrapped it and went for something else. But here you can see me just trying to position them beneath where the dragon's feet are, so that I can make sure that he's going to be standing where he should be standing. So he has an ample amount of rock underneath each foot. And I left the proper gap in between them because I wanted to paint some lava beneath him as well. And I think that that looks about right for how I want it. And next, on to some scoring. I'm going to scratch the tops of these rocks with my hobby knife so that I can make it look like they're cracked beneath the weight of the dragon, or even perhaps just because they're weak, newly formed rocks. And I'm just scraping at the edge here, trying to rough them up so that there's no straight edges on any of these. It peels apart rather easily. It comes apart kind of like styrofoam does, like packing styrofoam with the little balls. Just be careful if you're going to use a knife like I am to do this. You might slip, cut yourself. Then we'll do a little bit of cleanup and move on. I'm testing some new primer here. You're going to notice that this goes through several different paint jobs. This is the first one that I went through, and it's bright red, and I was trying to do kind of a I'm trying to mess with the lighting, like the source lighting of the piece. So I was going to try to go with a red glow, and then that didn't really work out how I wanted it to. So here I'm coming in with some joint compound to add some texture to the lava. I should have done this before I painted. I got a little bit overzealous and went too far ahead. Got ahead of myself, so. I tried these little sticky epoxy beads for bubbles. I really liked the effect that it promised to produce, but I just don't think that I am good enough with my painting skills and my shading to have incorporated them properly into the build without some kind of modification. And they stood out way too much and were way too obvious on the piece. An oft forgotten about portion of the piece when you're painting a miniature is the side of the base. I try to make sure mine's as clean as possible so that I can paint it black later. It really messes up a piece to see the base not finished when the painting's all done. In this section, I'm coming in with some more of the dragon red. It's the same color as the primer, but it's a little bit more focused because it's coming from the pot instead of from the can. Just going around the edge to highlight that, where the lava's meeting the rock. And now here I'm going back over the rock with some black. Even here, I'm using some of the model paint that I have on hand from my army painter supply, and even here, watering down these paints and getting them a little thinner with the pigment really helps spread them around and gives them that nice, really thick matte finish that I was going for in the first place. Now I'm going to come into the darker red in the center, and I'm going to be dry brushing a lava orange over that color, and that was an attempt to kind of blend the two different shades together, and in the end I ended up going with a wet blending. I didn't film the actual wet blending, and that was so lame I didn't even think of it. But you're seeing here the first iteration of the base, and like up until the stage where the yellow is applied, it actually looks alright. It looks passable, except for those bubbles. I could have done without those bubbles. again, but it actually looks all right, and I was kind of okay with it, but then I messed up right here. I started adding the red wash, and that was when things started going wrong, because I didn't control where the wash went. I just did what I always have done building terrain, and I'll just slop the wash all over it. And no, I should have used a little bit more control over it, so it was my own fault. And you can see here in this shot how everything now is darker as a result. And I have to come back in now and dry brush on more yellow, and that just makes it a mess. So I ended up hating it and redoing it later. Last things to do to this base was to hit the rocks with just a little bit of a darker gray, and I just mixed up some gray primer and some black paint real quick that I had already on my palette, so I didn't have to waste anymore, because I had used a lot of paint in messing up this portion of the base. I purchased this, I guess you can call it a hobby airbrush. It's really, it was really cheap. It was $22, and I got it with a 50% off coupon at Michael's, so it was about $11 for this gun. And it came with 2 canisters to mix paint in, and it came with an airbrush, or an air can, instead of, you know, a air compressor. It did come with a nozzle to connect to an air compressor, though. It took me forever to figure out what my problem was with getting this thing to work. I thought, hey, this thing is just a piece of crap, it's cheap. Until I bought a bottle of Vallejo Flow Improver. And once I did that and mixed it almost entirely Flow Improver, probably 80% Flow Improver, 10% water, and just a dab of paint, it worked. Guys, I've never done Zenithal priming before. This is my first attempt. I've used this primer, so I kind of know how it works. But I don't want to ruin this miniature. He's great, so wish me luck. We're going in and we're going to try it for the first time. See if we can't pull it off. Well, here he is. I got a little paint wiped off his face because I dropped him and I went to pick him up. The bad news is I can't repaint that with the same color paint because this happened. And now I gotta try to figure out how to fix it. And I think there might be a piece missing and I have no idea where it went. So, we're gonna do some looking on the internet real quick and see if I can't figure out how to fix a broken Army Painter spray can. Just a reminder to myself, when I run out of a color of the Army Painter paint, save the nozzle from it, just in case I drop it and it breaks. You can see from the red paint on my hands that I had a hell of a time forcing this nozzle from a tester's spray can in here. And since I've been redoing my collection of paints and such, I started getting into the washes a little bit more. So I got this red tone that I'm going to try today on this model. This was the same stuff that I put on the lava that I didn't like, but for him it was perfect. Just after doing his base coat, which I just did with the Zenithal priming, now I'm going to come back in and just completely douse him in the red wash to fill in the cracks. All that white that's underneath him, all that space that's left behind from the Zenithal priming, from the spaces that it missed, that's what all the wash is going to get in there. It's going to fill all that in and hide all of those crimes. And I think that this the detail on the wings and everything in this model is really enhanced by doing this, and I think that this is pretty much, as far as I can tell, the standard Army Painter way of painting a model. And I don't see any reason for me to change the way of doing it. In fact, I'm going to repainting my my mascot here in a couple of weeks. I'm going to try to do some stripping and repainting of him. I Now I'm coming in and giving all of the raised areas a very light dry brushing and basically a highlight in the original color, just to kind of bring out those high areas a little bit more. I think this effect looked particularly nice on the scales on the arms and on the underbelly. Not so much on the wings. I think I went a little too heavy on the wings, but even so, it still came out really nice. And now I'm going to come in and do some highlighting with the lava orange, just doing basically the same thing, only lighter. Skeleton bone for the teeth. I came back and highlighted the tongue with some of the orange, and then I did some of the red wash inside the mouth, and that gave the tongue a really nice highlighted effect with some dark at the back. It looked really nice. And I mixed up like an off tan white green kind of color, and that's going to be the underbelly and the horns that are all over the dragon. And I regret painting the horns this color because I think I should have used the skeleton bone. I think it would have looked much more presentable, but it worked okay. It just the bones and the spikes on the outside look washed. They look like they could have been brighter. They look washed out, whatever that term is, I'm not sure exactly. Some spots on this model were really hard to get into despite having spread the wings open. I took my time and I was patient, and if I started getting kind of anxious or shaky when I was going into a spot, I just put the brush down, rinsed it off, put the brush down, took a breath for a second, took a drink of coffee, took a deep breath, then grabbed it, went back in, and I got it. Then I went in and washed all of the bits that I painted tan with a strong tone. I was really trying to manipulate the wash into the cracks and the crevices more than on the brightly colored surfaces, because I didn't want those surfaces to be lost. I didn't want to lose those details. As best as I could, I didn't accomplish that perfectly, obviously, but I tried. I'm hitting the scales and the horns with a light dry brushing of a skeleton bone to try to brighten them back up. I'm making sure to focus primarily on the edges, the sharp edges, without going too deep into the recesses where all the shades are and all those nice washes ended up. I'm painting the eyes, just using some of that lava orange and yellow. Yellow for the iris and the lava orange for the outside of the eye, or whatever it's called. I had to get in there with a really small brush to do it, but I just went in real small with the small brush and painted the iris, and then I came in with the orange slightly watered down so that I had a little bit more of a, I could manipulate it a little better in a smaller area. And I just moved it in there with a toothpick to get it to settle. And some dark wash along the insides of the toenails and the claws. And then I affixed him to the base using some E6000, which dried really rubbery and would enable me to remove the miniature later on if I needed to change something. So I did cheat a little bit with this build. When painting in the video, you saw that there were 3 layers of rock here. I ended up being very unhappy with this after a night's sleep, the base anyway, and I came back to it a day or two later and took the top 2 layers of stone off, retextured everything with more of the same paste in a different manner. I textured the rocks too this time, made some nice streaks in them, and painted everything in the exact same way, except I didn't do the yellow wash, or I didn't do the red wash on the yellow spots. I pretty much avoided the yellow like the plague. Now it's not as dark, and I avoided putting the bubbles on because I didn't like how those came out either. So I took those off, and what I have here, the end result, is just amazing. I love how this came out. I got to practice some more wet blending on the base, which was nice. I don't get a chance to do that often, and this guy came out pretty cool. Now you see him on the table. He's displayed on these cavern tiles that I have. Well, they're not really cavern tiles so much. They go on elevated sections of cardboard, and they float at different heights like this, and when you look at them top down, they resemble the shape of a pentagram, and it was designed for fighting a demon. And I've used them as other things, from cavern tiles to rock formations. And my dragon, he looks pretty good on it. I mean, as far as a dragon's lair goes, but that would be more of like a cosmic battle. I used to have a big neoprene mat that I would set these rocks on, and it would have like a star field on it, and it would represent like a void, like you'd see in an old JRPG. So I think instead, for my dragon's lair, I think we want to do something a lot bigger. So for next week's video, we're going to come into another tie-in to this, and we're going to make a dragon's lair to go along with our dragon, and we're going to try to get some of the same kind of lava effects going on that. So stick around to next week, and we'll get into that. If you like what you see here, head on over to my Patreon page, guys. I run a small Patreon with a few subscribers, and for as little as $1 a month, you get access to pretty much everything. I haven't really toyed with the idea of anything higher for tiers yet, but that may come down the pike in the future. Also, I have a small merch store over on Amazon Merch. I'll leave a link in the description below for you guys to check out if you'd like to own some TheDungeonMattster swag. This one's actually out of print. This is an old one that I had on a different website. The font on this one's different than the newer ones, but it's more or less the same design. If you guys want to help support the channel here on YouTube as well, hit the like button below, hit the subscribe button, and leave a comment. Let me know what kinds of things you'd like to see on the channel. If you like me painting more miniatures, I can incorporate that into the channel as well. I'm ditching the idea of doing any sort of review for the channel. I think that's just not something I do that works out for me. I don't think I'm very good at it. So I'm going to skip doing reviews, and those videos don't seem to do well, and no more long series for a while. The carnival took quite a while, and I noticed some people were getting bored of it, and I kind of was too. So that's why we're doing this week, to take a break from all that carnival mess, and I might revisit it in the future to add or change some things to it. So that being said, I've been your Dungeon Master. Thanks for watching, everybody. Stay tuned next week. Peace.